Iran's revenge has begun. A fresh round of the US-Iran showdown erupted just a day after President Trump said Tehran was responsible for downing a US Apache helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claims it has launched strikes against multiple US military bases across the region in what it calls retaliation for recent American attacks. According to an IRGC spokesperson, the operation was a response to what Iran called US terrorist aggression. Much of this rests on IRGC statements carried by Iranian media and has not been independently verified, but the claims mark a dramatic turn, with Tehran openly saying it is now hitting American targets. The targets Iran named are significant. CNN reported, citing the IRGC, that Iran targeted the US Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, the nerve center of American naval power in the Gulf. The IRGC spokesperson declared several US bases were targeted in response to US terrorist aggression. If accurate, striking at the Fifth Fleet's home is not symbolic. It is Iran signaling it is willing to go after the core of the American military presence in the region, and the IRGC warned that any further US action would trigger an even larger response, saying, "Any renewed action by Washington will be met with severe and widespread attacks." None of this came out of nowhere. US Central Command said it completed self-defense strikes against Iran following the downing of the Apache. CENTCOM said its forces struck Iranian air defense systems, ground control stations, and radar sites near the Strait of Hormuz, calling it a proportional response to unjustified Iranian aggression. Iranian media reported explosions across southern Iran in Jask, Sirik, Keshem Island, and Minab. Iranian state broadcaster IRIB claimed US strikes hit 2 water reservoirs, disrupting civilian water supplies near Sirik. Trump told ABC the response was already underway, saying it would be very strong, very powerful. A chilling warning has just come out of Tehran. After the United States carried out direct strikes on Iran, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is reported to have issued a stark message now echoing across the region. Leave if you want to be safe. Coming from Iran's top diplomat, that is not the language of negotiation. It is the language of a country signaling that it considers itself at war and that it is prepared to act on it. The warning landed in the hours after an American military operation against Iranian targets, and it has transformed an already dangerous moment into something that looks far closer to open conflict than to the ceasefire both sides claimed to want. The significance is in who is speaking. Araghchi is not a military commander known for bluster. He is Iran's foreign minister, the face of its diplomacy, the man who has spent months at the center of the negotiations with Washington. When a figure like that drops the language of diplomacy and tells people to leave if they want to be safe, it signals that Tehran believes the diplomatic track has been overtaken by events. Iran is framing the American strikes not as an isolated incident, but as a line crossed, and Araghchi's warning is meant to be heard in Washington, in Tel Aviv, and across the Gulf. The warning did not come from nowhere. It followed direct American strikes on Iran. US Central Command said its forces carried out what it called self-defense strikes against Iran, an operation authorized at the highest level and described by Washington as a proportional response to what it termed unjustified Iranian aggression. This was not Israel acting while America watched. This was the United States striking Iranian targets directly, and Iran's response through Araghchi was immediate and severe. The strikes and the warning together mark a sharp turn, with Washington and Tehran now trading direct blows rather than working through intermediaries. The United States has just struck Iran directly, and the order came from the top. US Central Command announced that its forces began what it called self-defense strikes against Iran on the afternoon of June 9th, and it was explicit about who authorized them. The strikes started at 5 p.m. Washington time, at President Trump's direction. This is no longer Israel striking Iran while Washington urges restraint. This is the United States itself, on the president's order, hitting targets inside Iranian territory, and it pushes an already fragile ceasefire closer to the breaking point. CENTCOM framed the operation carefully. It described the strikes as a proportional response to what it called unjustified Iranian aggression, insisting the goal was to protect American troops and assets in the region. That language is deliberate. By calling it self-defense and proportional, Washington is trying to keep the action inside the legal and political boundaries of a limited response, rather than admitting it has entered the war as a direct combatant. But the framing does not change the fact on the ground. American munitions are now landing inside Iran on the American president's order, in a crisis Washington had publicly said it wanted to contain. CENTCOM did not detail every target, saying only that the operations took place inside Iran. The broader picture suggests the strikes are tied to the threat Iran poses around the Strait of Hormuz, even if every target has not been spelled out publicly. That focus is telling. It connects the strikes directly to the maritime standoff in the Gulf, where the US has been enforcing a naval blockade and where Iranian drones and missiles threaten American ships. Washington appears to be doing more than answering one incident. It is signaling that threats around Hormuz will now draw direct US military action. A blow to the United States is now unfolding in one of the most dangerous flashpoints on the planet. A US military Apache helicopter has crashed near the Strait of Hormuz, sending immediate shockwaves through a Gulf region already balanced on a knife's edge. What brought the aircraft down remains unclear, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes this so dangerous. In a corridor where every military movement risks triggering a wider escalation, a downed American helicopter with no clear cause is the kind of event that can spiral before anyone has the facts. Much of what follows is still being investigated and rests on US officials and early reporting, and should be read with that in mind. But the crash is confirmed, the location is confirmed, and the questions it raises are enormous. Washington moved quickly to reassure the public that both crew members survived. President Trump, speaking to reporters while returning from New York, confirmed the crash and emphasized that both pilots were safe and uninjured. He said an official report would follow, but he offered no explanation for what caused the aircraft to go down. Asked directly what brought it down, Trump said only that a report would be issued the next day. That left a critical information gap at a moment of maximum regional tension, and into that gap rushed a storm of speculation at the highest levels of global security.
We want to get it finished.
There's a report that an Army helicopter went down in the strait. Can you give us an update on that? Are the soldiers okay?
The pilots are fine, yeah.
And was
nobody
that,
injured?
What brought it down?
We are going to issue a report tomorrow.
When an American military aircraft goes down in a contested zone, the speed and detail of the official explanation usually indicate how confident the military is about what happened. Here, there is a confirmed crash, a promise of a report, and nothing else. No cause, no assessment, no ruling out of hostile action. That absence does not confirm the aircraft was shot down, but it does mean Washington is either still piecing together what happened or is not ready to say. In a region this volatile, the gap between the event and the explanation is where rumors become policy. The crash did not happen in a vacuum. US forces have been conducting sustained operations around the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz as part of Washington's broader strategy to enforce a maritime blockade aimed at restricting Iranian naval movements and disrupting suspected shipments. This narrow waterway remains a critical artery for global energy supplies, carrying a substantial portion of the world's oil exports. That makes any escalation here a matter of international concern, and it means the Apache went down in the middle of an active American military operation, not in quiet airspace.